But what I do know is that we have the ability to change whether or not our genes turn on and off by the way we think, by the way we feel, the actions we take, and the environment that we put ourselves in.
You're listening to Turn Your Soul On Radio. I am your host and visionary doctor, Dr. Brandy Victory, and my mission is to assist high-achieving women in closing the gap between feeling unfulfilled to living a life on fire. It is time, ladies, to champion our own lives and turn ourselves on. This is Living Victoriously, ladies. This is how you turn your soul on.
Beauties, thank you so much for being here with me today. I totally want you to know that I so appreciate your support. I've had just so many people walking up to me lately and saying, "Oh my gosh, I've been listening to your podcast. It's so great. I'm getting so much out of it." And I'm just grateful. Thank you for telling me that, because then it allows me to know that there's purpose and meaning to my life when I'm doing these kinds of things. And if you know me, you know that I'm on a mission to affect massive change on this planet, to bring more light to our world by mitigating pain and helping people awaken to something greater within themselves. So I need your help. I am just asking you to just take a minute right now, pause this audio, pull over if you're driving, whatever it is you're doing, just take a minute to send this episode to someone you love. Send this to someone who needs a little bit of inspiration or might like to awaken a little bit more to what may be interfering with their lives. Today we're going to have a great conversation about how we can step more fully into the I'm enoughness, the I'm not giving upness, the empowered place that we all desire to come from, but sometimes have trouble tapping into. So we're going to talk about that. So if you know anyone who would like to be more empowered, share this with them right now. And then head on over to rate a review and rate this audio. And if you feel like it's worthy of 5 stars, I greatly appreciate it. The more ratings and reviews that we can get out, the more people who actually receive this word, and the more people who receive this word get to awaken more into their truth. So thank you for doing that, for not just for me, but for our planet, for all the people, all the women in our lives that are ready to step into something way beyond their experience of today. So today, like I alluded to, we're going to talk about how to really be in that place of empowerment within ourselves and what actually gets in the way of it. So there's a lot of things, everything from our upbringing to our beliefs, to our health, to EMFs, to sleep, to neurotransmitters. So neurotransmitters are chemicals in our body that transmit nerve impulses. So it may go nerve to nerve or nerves in the brain. It may go nerve to muscle or nerve to gland. So whenever we have a disruption in our neurotransmitter balance, it creates all sorts of things. It can create moodiness, depression, OCD, sleep issues. The list goes on and on when we have neurotransmitter imbalances. As a matter of fact, when I was in the throes of bipolar manic depression and looking for my way out, I began working with a functional medicine practitioner, and yes, this is how I got turned on to this work and began doing this, because it literally saved my life. I had a doctor in Houston, Texas, whose name was Dr. Ron Rakowski, and he's amazing. And he put me on amino acid therapy to actually get me off of my medication. So amino acids play a huge role in our mental mindset and our mental health. And on that note, I want to thank our sponsor, Purium Superfoods, an amazing organic superfood company that has high vibrational foods, high vibrational supplementation to help you shift your health to that place that you want to go. These are things that you can take every single day. I know I do. I travel with it. I love it. They have a specific product that I really want to feature today, and it's called Super Amino 23. And Super Amino 23 is an amino acid supplement. And it has a lot of different things in it, way beyond branched chain amino acids, which typically only have, well, not typically, branched chain amino acids are valine, leucine, and isoleucine. It's 3 specific amino acids in your branched chain, and this is what most like bodybuilders are using and that kind of thing. But if you really want to like take your health, your mental mindset health to a whole nother level and really improve your neurotransmitter function, the super amino 23 has other things in it like phenylalanine and methionine and tryptophan. And tryptophan happens to be a precursor to serotonin, and serotonin is that neurotransmitter that leads to happiness. It's the happiness neurotransmitter. It also helps regulate your body clock when it works with melatonin, so it helps you get to sleep on a regular basis and helps keep your circadian rhythms aligned. And if you would like $50 off of a bottle, I would be happy to share that with you. I have a special gift card that all my listeners have access to. You just go to their website, ishoppurium.com. That's ISHOPPURIUM.com, ishoppurium.com, and enter the gift card code Dr. Brandy. That's DRBRANDY, and you'll get $50 off. The bottle of super aminos is $75, so you're just basically spending $25 for this very high quality amino acid supplement to help boost your mental mindset and your mood, or maybe your energy. I also get a lot of energy and strength from these things. So go get your bottle. I'm so excited to be able to share that with you today. And now let's get on with the show. I had this really great meeting. I'm involved with this group of awesome women here in Netherlands, my little mountain town I live in Colorado. And it's a Netherlands business women's group. And this is just a wonderful, wonderful group of women. So, hey, ladies, I know some of you are listening to this, and my heart to yours. Thank you so much for being a part of my life and for the support you bring to my growth. We had an awesome meeting a couple of nights ago, and we basically just did a roundhouse where people throw out things that they're needing support with, and the rest of the group kind of feeds back their thoughts around it or gives them ideas to ponder or ways that they can break through different things that are going on in their lives. And the question arose, how do we tap into that part of ourselves that doesn't give up? How do we continue to facilitate our own growth even when things are really, really hard? And originally, I think the conversation began around business and being able to grow our businesses. And then it began to move into more of a how do we do this for ourselves or for our patients or our clients from the perspective of a healer or a therapist or something like that. And it's a tricky one, right? Because so many people, especially the people who are going to see therapists, are there for a reason, right? So they're having trouble. And I'm pretty sure that therapists, now I didn't have this conversation particularly with a therapist, but I'm sure that they're having more and more clients or patients with things, really serious mental problems, okay? I mean, when we look at the suicide rate of kids between 10 and 17, white kids have, the suicide rate of white kids between ages 10 and 17 has actually risen 70% in the last 10 years. And that was from 2006 to 2016. It may even be up from that, I don't know. 70% increase in suicide rate among our kids and teens. And in the black population, it's risen even more. Now, they don't commit suicide as much as white people, but in their population, it's risen 77% in 10 years. These are kids and teenagers taking themselves out for whatever reason. And we're going to get into some of the whys behind that. And I have to imagine when this kind of thing comes into a therapist's office, it's a very huge challenge of how to help this person out of this dark, deep hole. Now, my response to that was, you just do it. I remember when I was in the throes of bipolar manic depression and I was contemplating suicide, and this is like, I was suicidal. This was a big part of my life. Like every time I'd fall into this deep depression, it was horrible and I didn't want to live. And I can remember having what I thought was my last conversation with God. I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm not doing this. And then somehow I made it through, and here I am talking to you about how to get through it. Now, I don't have the answer for everyone. I don't. I just know what happened for me. And my response to that question as it evolved was, yeah, you just do it. You just choose, and you have a desire to have something different. Now, my desire was definitely to have something different, and I was willing to die for it. And I had a therapist respond to me, and she was like, yeah, and some people do. Some people take themselves out because they don't see any other way. And it's a tricky conversation. And like I said, I don't have the answers to it, but I've continued to ponder this whole question and how do we help people tap into that place? I'm not a therapist, and I do see people who come in and they're like, oh, you know what? I want to feel better. I want to love my life, and things are pretty dark right now. I do have people who tell me those kinds of things, and they know I've gotten myself through it. So they're coming to me for guidance, and I'm so grateful to be able to help them. So when I sit down with this and kind of look at, okay, what are the things that are actually getting in our way of being able to be in that place of, yes, I want something better, and I'm willing to take action to make it happen because I believe that my life can be good. Like, that is opposite of what a lot of people are living right now. So there's 5 primary things that I've contemplated that may be of help as we continue this conversation. And the first thing is upbringing. Well, clearly our upbringing plays a role in how we perceive the world and how we act in the world and how we choose our experience in the world. Now, most people, especially as we're kids, we're very unconscious of our experience in the world as our choosing. And, there's a limitation on that. And the rest of the stuff that we're going to get into today you'll discover how we're limited in choosing. So we do have the ability to choose, and there's other things that sometimes can override our ability to choose. So not every single person who's in the depths of depression and wants to commit suicide has the ability to, no, I'm just going to choose not to. It's not that easy, okay? And we're going to talk about that. But our upbringing, the role models that we had, and the traumas that we had as children, this all colors our world. So I absolutely believe that we're vibrant, bright beings. We're a flicker of God that's come into the physical to express ourselves, to grow as spiritual beings on this planet, and to bring whatever purpose we came through to bring. And when we have trauma as children and young people, it starts to color us. It veils our ability to see that truth for ourselves and see that truth in other people. So we begin to see the world as colored, maybe in a black fogginess or a smogginess or unhealthiness or a hateful place. And then it seems like, what's the point of being here when we have to live in this fog or this smog or this hatefulness? So, upbringing and trauma is a big piece. And, of course, I just want to put it out there that if you feel like you have some kind of mental mindset problem, a mood disorder, or something of that nature, please go see a therapist, get some help, okay? Because there are so many people out there to help you. You can integrate some of this knowledge that I'm obviously sharing with you, because we're going to talk about gut and diet and neurotransmitters and EMFs and computer usage and all these things. And those are things you can do on your own. But, I would have never made it out alive if it wasn't for the doctors that came into my life. They swooped down like angels in my life. And I believe we all have angels in our lives. We just have to be willing and ready to allow it to come, okay? So get some help if you need it, all right? So upbringing is one thing. The other thing that I want to tap on is epigenetics. So yeah, sometimes we have genetic issues. I had a patient come in the other day, and she had muscular dystrophy. She had muscular dystrophy, and she brought her little kid in, and her daughter, I don't know, maybe 11, probably 11 years old, maybe 12. And so this woman has been in this condition for like 30 years. And so she has trouble walking, moving. She's wearing braces on her legs. I mean, this is a serious condition. And she proceeds to tell me, oh, well, my mom had it and my grandmother had it. So they knew when I was 21 that that's what I had. And and then her daughter, poor thing, she says, oh my gosh, Mom, am I going to get it? So now we've just planted a seed, right? There's something called epigenetics. And epigenetics is the study of the changes in an organism or a being caused by modifications of the environment of the gene, so how the gene expresses itself. Okay, so genes are like our DNA, and it has our genetic code in there, and the genetic code can determine certain things, but it's whether or not that gene is turned on or off which determines whether or not it expresses itself. So the things that can encourage turning on or turning off genes is the environment that we live in, and our thoughts are a big part of that environment. So who knows if that little girl will get muscular dystrophy, and it just, my heart just broke and ached. I had to do a lot of clearing and meditation work while, like, right there in the office in that moment, I was like, clear that out, and let it go, because it's not yours. Like, she didn't come for me to help her with muscular dystrophy. She wanted me to just give her an adjustment, and she was going to leave. And so, to see all of that in action, and to really understand the epigenetics effect of when we begin to believe something, that it can turn on genes, and these genes then can express themselves. We have to be extremely mindful of the things we say to ourselves, to our children, and to other people. The great thing is, with epigenetics, we have the ability to change whether our genes turn on and off. I see many women who go out and have both of their breasts removed because someone in their family had breast cancer. Now, is that the right thing to do? I don't know. Is it a wrong thing to do? I don't know. It's not my body. It's not what I'm going to do, but I'm not up against that. But what I do know is that we have the ability to change whether or not our genes turn on and off by the way we think, by the way we feel, the actions we take, and the environment that we put ourselves in. So, this is kind of all along the whole upbringing, because we tend to do what our family does. So, a small portion of our experience is actually genetic. Most of it is familial. Most of it is how we do things the way our family do things. And this leads into the other thing that causes us to maybe be in that place of not being able to move forward or have the gumption to grow ourselves or our businesses. And it's our core beliefs. It's the things that we deeply believe about ourselves, our abilities in the world, that get in the way of our ability to manifest and create. So to be in that place of yesness, to be in that place of empowerment, to be in that place of I'm creating my life consciously, this is innate in everyone. And we're all waking up, maybe at different rates, but we're all waking up to our ability to do this. And as a human, we're built for survival. We're creators, we're manifestors. It's our nature. So we all have the ability to step into our greatness, step into the next level of our growth and our awakening, and it's unstoppable. I believe it's unstoppable, because we all came here for a certain reason. Now, we can choose to fight the growth, fight the expansion, and experience our lives like dysfunctional and hateful and unloved and horrible, and this is life and life sucks. We can choose that, or we can choose to go with it. We can choose to be a part of the experience of our own growth and our own truth, and explore ourselves from a place of acceptance and understanding that we're human, and allowing our consciousness to awaken to a greater place within ourselves, so that life doesn't have to be hard. So some of the core values that I see arise for people are: I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, it's too hard, I can't. And those stories go on and on. Abundance isn't for me. I can't make money. Rich people are bad, whatever the stories are, it's important for you to take a deep dive into your core belief systems, into your core structures that create your experience in the world. Because if you believe it, it will be true in your experience. You're wearing a veil, rose-colored glasses that you perceive the world through, and what you focus on, you get more of. So if you have a deep core belief that I'm unlovable, guess what? You're going to prove that to yourself over and over and over and over again, be it in relationships with your mom or your dad or your siblings, be it in relationships with coworkers or your partner or your husband or, whatever. You're going to prove it. And then you get to go, oh, see, yeah. So you maybe start dating someone and then they ghost you. That's a new term I've learned recently. They're just kind of all there with you. You're having a great time. You're spending hours and hours and hours together. And then all of a sudden you don't hear from them again. See, I'm unlovable. You just proved it to yourself. You created an experience that proved to you. If you did not have a core belief that you're unlovable, that experience probably isn't going to have as much of an effect on your psyche as someone who does believe that they're unlovable. So it's important to get into these deep held core beliefs so you can move past them. And there's different techniques and things. This is the primary thing that I do with my patients. I help them figure out these core beliefs and help them eliminate them from their energetic field and from their subconscious so that their conscious mind and their subconscious mind can be in agreement. So it's one thing for our conscious mind to go, yes, I believe I can be successful. Yes, I believe I can have a loving relationship. Yes, I believe I can have, a lot of money and help the world with my money. It's a whole nother conversation to think about, okay, yeah, my conscious mind is thinking that, but on a subconscious level, underneath the surface, there's this vibration that's saying, no, who do you think you are? You can't, you fool, you can't do it. And all these self-hatred thoughts that so many of us have been ingrained with that get in the way, they undermine your ability to create what you desire. So when we get the conscious mind and the subconscious mind in agreement, you're unstoppable. The conscious mind says, yeah, I believe I can have a loving relationship. And the subconscious says, let's go. Because there's nothing underneath the surface holding you back, tying you down, anchoring you back to the way it was or your old beliefs. Okay. So now we're going to talk about some things that you probably don't want to hear. So I want to invite you right now to step back, go into your observer self, and pay attention to what arises as we have this next part of the conversation. So this is a hard conversation because, well, there's just so much addiction in our life to the things that we're going to talk about, and it's a vicious cycle that's really difficult to get out of. And the addiction part of your mind may say, "Oh, that's bullshit. That's crap. Whatever. Whoever, whatever." You're just going to make up excuses and stories around what I'm about to say, and I just want you to pay attention to that, because maybe those excuses and stories serve you, and maybe they don't. All right. So here's where we're at. There's evidence that EMFs may be getting in your way of being in your greatness, of being in your best, of being in that place of, oh yeah, I can do this. Here's my steps. I'm willing to take action, and let's go and let's create and get to the place we want and feel good about yourself and feel accomplished and feel great, right? And the reason why I say that is because studies have linked EMFs to cancer. Let's just start there. EMFs are actually, they're in a group 2B, they're considered a group 2B, 2 and the letter B, carcinogen, all right? And the other things that are in this group 2B is chlorophyll and lead and DDT. Like, we all know that those things cause cancer. EMFs have been classified in the same classification of carcinogens as chloroform, lead, DDT, and others, okay? So this is the way it is. EMFs cause cancer, okay? So let's just start there, and let me just give you a few little things that you can do to keep yourself above water in this way. So begin using a headset, an actual headset that plugs into your phone, and earbuds that go into your ears. Bluetooth is Not something I recommend using. I would never put Bluetooth on my head or on my body. I don't sleep with a Fitbit. I don't walk with a Fitbit on my arm. I don't wear a Fitbit. I don't want to wear any technology because of this issue, all right? I've had, and we have, in one of my practices, we have a heart sound recorder, which is basically a test that we do on how the heart is performing. We can listen to each of the valves and how they're performing. We can look at what deficiencies underlie their inefficiency, if you will, or there's a dysfunctional state. You know, I've found that a lot of heart issues revolve around not having enough B complex. And if you listen to the last episode, you know a little bit about B complex. So if you're going for that, go for a whole food natural variety. But what I found is that if people are wearing a Fitbit, when we do the test, it's basically an echocardiogram. If people are wearing a Fitbit, it disrupts the function of the heart. Like, we can see that live on these tests, on these recordings. So I always have people take off their Fitbit before I treat them. I recommend that they don't put it back on unless it's vital. Like if they're doing their exercise, if they're at the gym and they just want to do that, I mean, that might be the place to do it. I personally don't do it. I've actually had to really fight with myself around keeping my phone on my body when I'm at the gym in an on state where the signal is going out. Because I like to listen to my music, and then I record my workouts and all these things, and I got to have the Wi-Fi signal to do that. But what I've come to finally is that, because the more I learn about this, I start to realize, man, I'm not doing myself any favors. But now I just put it on airplane mode, and I put my music library on where it doesn't need Wi-Fi. And when I need to record something, I take it off airplane mode, I do my little recording, and then I put it back on airplane mode. Now I can feel safe with the phone against my body. The last thing you ever want to do is put that phone on your head, okay? So that's your brain that you're affecting. So definitely use a headset. Get away from power lines. If you're living near a power line, move. Like, I'm not joking. People who live near high voltage have a 24% higher risk of cancer. 24%. Like, that's significant. I would just, move, seriously. And if you are in front of a computer a lot and, we can't help it unless you live up here in the mountains with me. You can't help but be around EMFs. They're coming out with 5G, which is a whole nother story, which is going to be so much more powerful than what we have out there now. And people are being bombarded every moment of every day with electromagnetic frequencies. And these frequencies are disrupting our biofield. We are beings that have a biofield, and the energy affects energy, so you can't help but be affected by it. So if you're like one of these people that's in front of a computer all day, I have so many patients like that, just go outside, get in nature, because nature can mitigate some of the harmful effects of EMFs. As a matter of fact, they say one of the best things you can do is live in a forested area because the trees buffer EMFs. So we're still looking at all the biological effects of EMFs. And we still don't know so much, which is kind of crazy. But when we look specifically at neurotransmitters, and again, neurotransmitters are these chemical substances in your body that transmit nerve impulses. So neurotransmitters allow the impulse to go from nerve to nerve, or from nerve to muscle, or from nerve to gland. And if you have a problem with your neurotransmitters, then these impulses aren't getting across. As a matter of fact, there are some antidepressants that are considered SSRIs, or selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. And essentially what that means is it inhibits the reuptake of serotonin so that more can build up between the nerve cells, or between the nerve and muscle cells, or the nerve and glands, so that there's not a deficiency state of serotonin. So the drugs are kind of helping mitigate a deficiency state of serotonin, but they do not help your body produce more serotonin. So we got to get the body into a state where it's producing more of what it's meant to produce, instead of just trying to mitigate a symptom. All right. So when we look at neurotransmitters, there's been evidence that everything from histamine, dopamine, adrenaline, noradrenaline, all of these significantly increase with increased exposure time to EMFs. And this is a big deal, right? Because these affect our mood. These affect how we feel. These affect how we make choices in the world. And if we're, obsessive compulsive about food or sex or porn or things like that, it also affects if we're happy or not. So with increased exposure time, we're also getting a significant reduction in serotonin and melatonin. And again, these are the two neurotransmitters that help regulate your body clock. They help regulate your circadian rhythm. And it's a big deal. I have people reach out to me constantly and they're like, you know what, I'm not sleeping well and I'm depressed and I don't know what's wrong with me. And, I'm just a big proponent of not staying on your computer all day. There's a lot of these people who actually sleep with their phone by their head. As a matter of fact, we were talking about the suicide rate of kids that has been on the rise, significantly on the rise. And many of these kids have been found to sleep with their phone under their pillow or on their nightstand. Now, I do sleep with my phone in my room, but I have it on airplane mode. There's no Wi-Fi signal coming to my phone. And the reason why I do that is because I still might need my clock, that kind of thing, but I'm not playing games at night. I'm not checking my emails first thing in the morning, laying in bed with my phone. I'm not having texting conversations till I fall asleep at night. Like, these things aren't happening, but these are happening to our children and to a lot of adults. I know a lot of adults who are addicted to Facebook. Like, they can't get off, and it's a true addiction. And I'm telling you right now, you don't want to hear this because you might be that person. You're like, no, I'm not addicted. Well, if you're thinking that right now, I invite you to try to stop. And you're going to have story after story pop up in your head. Well, they need me. I've got to run my group, blah, blah, blah. Story, lie, lie, lie. You're making that up because you're addicted. So the reason why you get addicted is because there's a couple of different things. There's blue light coming in from your computer, and this blue light is unnatural. And one of the things that you can do to mitigate that is to wear blue blocker glasses. I have a pair. I love them. I personally have less headaches and less foggy mind when I wear my blue blocker glasses. There are certain times you don't want to wear them. You don't want to wear them outside. You want to get the sunlight. You don't want to block any of the natural UV rays. But if you're standing in front of your computer, you definitely want to do that, and especially at night. So in our house, we have red light bulbs in our living room and in our bedroom. I am having trouble giving up the one regular light on my nightstand because I can't read in a red light, but I definitely can use my blue blocker glasses and block out the blue light. So, there's different things that you can do to mitigate the blue light, but there's also something called a flicker rate. So when you're looking at your computer, there's a flicker rate. The light flickers, and it flickers at a rate that it's imperceptible to you. So it flickers, but you can't tell it's flickering. And that flicker rate affects your neurology. So all of these things, blue light, flicker rate, all these things shift your neurotransmitters. And when you have an imbalance in your neurotransmitters, you get addictions. I've had a lot of addiction imbalances in my life, and I absolutely know that it's related to my neurotransmitters because I've done neurotransmitter therapy and see these things change. So if you're still having that conversation with yourself about how this is just crazy story that I'm telling you right now, see if you can challenge yourself to, you know what, I'm going to stay off of Facebook one day. I'm going to stay off my computer for one day. Or if you can't do one day, what about 5 hours? Or 8 hours? Like, see where your limit is and notice within yourself the resistance that you're having to doing it. That is an indication that there's a problem. That's an indication that you have an addiction. And people don't want to hear that, but it is my absolute job and purpose to remind you that these things actually do have an effect on your body. There's other things that EMFs have been shown to be problematic with, everything from genetic damage, reproduction defects, cancer, we already talked about that. Neurological degeneration and nervous system dysfunction. So think Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, MS. Immune system dysfunction. Think I get sick all the time, or autoimmune dysfunction. That would be rheumatoid arthritis, Graves' disease, Hashimoto's, and the autoimmune list goes on and on. Kidney damage and cognitive effects and developmental effects. One of the things we have to really be mindful of is our children. I mean, this is important for adults, and it's way more important for our children. There's a guy, Dr. Ronald Herberman, who was the director of University of Pittsburgh Cancer Institute, and he testified in a congregational hearing on tumors and cell phone use that EMFs, the absorption rate, are way higher in children's brains than adults. And this is due to children having a thinner skull, their brain tissue is more absorbent, and they're smaller in size. So he was saying that children's brain may absorb 2 times as many EMFs as an adult. So, I see so many of these kids, especially the moms that come to my office, and bless them, because they're moms and they're sometimes single moms and they're doing it all. And they want to just have their 5 minutes or 15 minutes or 30 minutes with me. And so they put a cell phone in their child's hand so the child can play games, and they're over here getting treated. But they really don't know the impact of that cell phone use on their children. I've actually had people that I look up to, like Dave Asprey and things like that, who don't let their children play with their phones until they're a little bit older, when their brain's more developed. So, it's a hard one. It's a hard one because, as parents, we need to figure out how we can, create space for ourselves, right? And the TV and the phone is just an easy way to do that. But just want you to be very clear that screen time for your children has an impact. So lessen that, reduce that, and then get them out into nature. Get them into the sunshine. Watch the sun rise. Watch the sun set. These are things that can help mitigate all the EMFs and the blue light and the things that are really disrupting our nervous systems as a culture. The other thing that I think is really important to know is that EMFs have been found to create a leak in the blood-brain barrier. A leak in the blood-brain barrier. Say that 20 times pretty fast. It's hard. And what that means is essentially it allows, when there's a leak in the blood-brain barrier, it allows things like mercury and aluminum and viruses to get across the blood-brain barrier. And this, maybe is why we're getting so many neurological disorders and so many autoimmune disorders. I know one of the things that I commonly do is I treat people with traumatic brain injury or concussion injuries and treat them for leaky brain. And it's been found that if we have leaky gut, we commonly have leaky brain. So I treat both so that we can close those gaps so things can't get across that aren't supposed to be getting across. But these are the kinds of problems that lead to autoimmune disorders and histamine responses in the body to things we can't even clarify, because there's all this dysfunctional state that's happening in the body when this leak happens. EMFs have also been found to disrupt glucose metabolism in the brain, and the brain uses so much glucose that when that is disrupted, it can lead to things like Alzheimer's. All right, so again, get the cell phone off of your head. We think because we grew up with phones on our head, when phones were actually tethered to a wall, we put the phone to our head to listen to it. And so we just continue that kind of pattern, but it's not the same thing, and we can't be doing the same thing, or we're going to have repercussions from that. So we've talked about upbringing, we've talked about core beliefs, we've talked about EMFs. Let's talk a little bit about sleep. I've kind of touched on it already. Sleep is so vital. When we have disrupted sleep, we're not thinking clearly, and it's hard to be motivated. I know for me, when I'm lacking sleep, I get cranky, I get irritable, I can't focus, I eat more carbohydrates, I feel shitty in my body, I can't get to the gym or get a good workout in. All these things, right, happen when I haven't got good sleep. And this happens for all of us. And again, these neurotransmitters being disrupted, like serotonin and melatonin specifically, that interrupts our sleep. So if you're on the computer or playing games at night in bed before you go to sleep, then you're your neurotransmitters are getting disrupted. That's just part of good sleep hygiene. Get off of your computer after a certain period of time. I'm pretty much off of my computer by 6 o'clock unless I'm working late for some reason, but I'm not doing anything significant on that computer after 6 o'clock. And it really, really helps. There are other things that we can talk about related to sleep hygiene, but I'll leave that for another episode. So let's talk about the fifth element here, and that's just our health. Like how we can be in our greatest and best empowered place within ourselves, and to have the gumption to take action, to hold our vision, to take action, and be willingness to allow it to all unfold. And, we have to have good health, specifically good gut health. So gut, and I speak to this a lot, so you've probably heard the story, but gut is our second brain. It's, if we have a gut instinct or a gut reaction or a gut feeling, those are all really, really important. But if your neurotransmitters are screwed up, because like so much of your neurotransmitters are produced in your gut, seriously, not in your brain, but in your gut. And if those are imbalanced, you're not going to have a good sense of what's going on in your gut. You're not going to have a good sense of your divine yes, because that's where it comes through. So we've got to get our gut in good health. The other part of that is the level of micronutrients that we have in our body. So we can have too many of some things, we can have not enough of some things. Now, if we're eating primarily a whole foods diet and taking primarily whole food nutritional supplements, you're going to be in a better standing than someone who's eating processed foods, or someone who's not taking any supplementation, or someone who's taking crappy supplementation. There's so much crappy supplementation, as you already know if you heard the last episode. And, if you're taking stuff that's clogging up your receptor sites or causing toxicity in your body, then your body robs itself of nutrients and minerals and micronutrients to try to buffer all of that stuff. And if you're using up your stuff, then you're depleting your body. And, depletion states cause us to be in a state of depletion, which feels crappy, which doesn't feel excited, which doesn't feel empowered. So we got to get our micronutrients in balance, all right? And one of the ways that we can do this is do a micronutrient test. So I talked about this before, and I'm going to talk about it again because it's so, so important. There's one thing to take blood and look at your blood and go, oh yeah, you've got plenty of whatever's in there at this very moment in time. It's a whole nother thing to take your blood, open up the white blood cells, and look inside the cell and see what's been happening over 3 to 6 months. So if you want to know if what you've been doing is working, if the supplements you're taking is working, if your diet is working, if there's a different food choices that you can make to improve your health and to improve the empowerment that you feel on a day-to-day basis, do a micronutrient test, all right? So on that note, I am offering a blood draw day. So for all my locals, if you're like really into improving and empowering yourself, and then come on in, sign up, register, get your blood drawn. I'm doing this on April 2nd. I'm so excited. I'll have a phlebotomist in the office, and we're taking appointments. And we're also having an open house. So if you're not interested in getting your blood drawn, please come by anyway. Let's see you in the open house. Other practitioners will be there who share that office space with me. You'll get to tour Alpine Botanicals, the sweet little apothecary that I'm in the wellness center next to it, or that's a part of it. And just come have some good snacks and have a good time. And for those of you who aren't local and you're wanting to do this micronutrient testing, reach out. I'm happy to do it for you. And if you tell me that you heard this on this episode, you're going to get the same rate as the people who show up in my office. So I'm holding the blood draw day so that people can get a discount on their labs. The labs are really expensive labs. They're like $2,500 tests. I'm getting people down to like less than $300 and if they have insurance. And if you don't have insurance, just a little bit more. You're not going to pay the $2,500. It's going to be like $500 or something. But regardless, if you're thinking you want to do that and you can't come into my office on that day, get in touch with me or my assistant, and we will make sure that you get the reduced rate on these labs, because it's so important. If you want to be in that place of total empowerment and feeling great in your life, you've got to know if what you're doing is working. You've got to do the science. You've got to figure it out. You got to pay attention to your belief systems. You got to get rid of the ones that aren't working for you, and you got to get better sleep and get away from the EMFs, okay? We can't change our upbringing. We can't change the role models that we had in our life. We can't change the traumas that have happened, but we can process through that stuff and allow all of that stuff to be a part of our growth. So I'm going to leave you with that. I hope you have a fantastic day. I hope this has enlightened you a bit. And if you're thinking now, wow, maybe I should do something about my neurotransmitters, head on over to ishoppurium.com, ISHOPPURIUM.com, and get your $50 gift code with the gift code card Dr. Brandy, DRBRANDY. And if you're not doing any of those things, do whatever it takes to turn your soul on. Thank you for tuning in to another awesome episode of Turn Your Soul On Radio. If you're enjoying the show and it's making a difference in your life, I'd be super grateful if you'd head on over to iTunes and leave a heartfelt review, which tremendously helps the growth of the show. Feel free to leave any suggestions or questions in your review, or you can shoot us an email at admin@drbrandyvictory.com. I also would like to invite you to become a deeper part of the Turn Your Soul On Radio community, which you can do by joining our private Facebook group, Turn Your Soul On. I'll leave a link in the show notes for you. Thank you so much for being here today, and I'll talk to you next time. Have a fantastic day.
This podcast is for information purposes only. Dr. Brandy Victory is not a medical doctor, and the views and statements expressed on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Dr. Brandy Victory and the producers, disclaim responsibility from any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements and advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.